Hi everyone, Elisa Crespo here, the Executive Director of Stonewall Community Foundation, and we're joined today by our friend Lee Vish, the founder of Vish Law, an expert in estate planning and someone who works closely with a lot of members of the LGBTQ community. You may remember Lee from one of the estate planning events that we had a few months ago, and he's back. So thank you so much for taking time
Thank you so much for having me.
with me again.
Absolutely.
And I invited you here to come and chat with me because the month of August is National Make a Will Month. And as most folks know, or maybe most folks don't know, but estate planning has always been a really critical part of Stonewall Community Foundation's identity, and particularly as it pertains to members of the LGBTQ plus community. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to create a will and how it impacts our community.
Yeah.
So the first question I wanted to ask you, Lee, was sort of about the big picture of why now. So in our research, we found, according to caring.com, that only 24% of Americans have a will. This is according to a survey that they administered. And so I just kind of wanted to ask you from the top, why do you think so many people put off creating a will?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it is a lower number than I think most people realize. Some of the biggest reasons are some people don't think they have enough, some people think they're too young, and then there's some people that just don't want to talk about it, don't want to think about it, and don't want to have to make some of the decisions that when working with different professionals are going to ask you to think about and kind of challenge you to think about.
Right.
So, but it's very important. It's very important in our community as well to make sure that you are leaving it to the people you want to. State laws sometimes dictate other things that people don't want to. So a will help you make sure it goes where you want it to go.
Thank you. As I'm sitting here and you're talking and we're talking on this topic, I keep thinking about how in my upbringing, this was never a conversation that we had, right? It wasn't a normal topic of conversation. The idea of creating a will, making sure that you have an estate plan, it just wasn't something that was instilled in us, or I guess because I came from a working class family, there was this perception that we don't have anything to pass on to anyone anyway. What would you say to that?
I would say that's not true, but I understand how and why that happens. But there are many other things that you can do in your will that aren't related to financial. So naming guardians for your children, setting up where a trust in your will so that if you were to die and your child was a young minor, you'd make sure that they're cared for properly and how you want them to be cared for. And it's a peace of mind on a lot of that.
Right. So anyone should be thinking about creating a will for themselves, regardless of their socioeconomic background.
Correct.
Right. But it is true that people who tend to think of this more than others are people who may be slightly older, people who maybe have assets, and it becomes more of an important thing for them to consider.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There can also be illness, unfortunately. Yeah. Illness sometimes is what brings it front of mind for people, or someone around them that has recently passed away.
I want to share one story about how a will has been able to benefit the work that we do here at Stonewall Community Foundation, and by extension, our grantees. So some folks may know that a few years ago, Stonewall was the beneficiary of a bequest that was left to us from Mark Brandt. And we have created a number of programs here as a result of receiving that bequest. Mark had Stonewall in his will, as many people do. And with the funding that we got from that bequest, we have been able to redistribute millions of dollars to LGBTQ nonprofits. And most recently, we created the Reclaiming Our Power grant-making initiative, which is one of our largest ever multi-year funding initiatives. And so that's just one example of how thinking of creating a will and considering organizations that are near and dear to your heart, that you care about their mission, that's just one significant way in which you can continue to have a legacy even when you're no longer here. And so I share that as an example of something that's been very monumental for us here at Stonewall.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you talk to us about why it's particularly important for members of our community to think about estate planning? Many of us don't have children, right? We, some of us do, some of us don't, but I think oftentimes folks may put off maybe making a will because of the fact that they don't have children. So how has that shown up in your work, working with members of our community?
Yeah, in our community there are many members that have chosen family, and they want to make sure that they take care of their chosen family. Sometimes that also means that they don't have the best relationships with their natural family, and all states are a little different, but generally the rules would, if you die without a will, would mean the assets would go to your family, your next of kin, your closest heirs. And if someone hasn't always been the best to you and you want to make sure that you can take care of your friends or leave a lasting impact at the Stonewall or something like that, it would be, you need to have a will so that you can achieve those goals.
Right. So we're now 5 years past the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the data shows that it's still influencing how people think about estate planning. What long-term impacts are you seeing?
I think that impacted my line of work for the better, which isn't, the outcome that most would probably expect to hear, but it did allow other people, or sometimes force other people, to think about these things more, things that they didn't want to. We had, very young people passing away from COVID, and it was, a surprise to everyone, because we sometimes, when we're younger, think we are invisible. Right. And so it helped a lot of people say, okay, I'm maybe not that invisible, and I need to think about these things. Maybe because I don't have kids, I have more significant assets, or just a multitude of other reasons. And so thinking about it, planning for it, and getting it in writing, makes people feel better. I get that a lot when people are done. They kind of, there's a sigh of relief when they finally sign, and they're like, okay, I can stop thinking about that.
Yeah. So in other words, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow, right?
No, not at all.
So it's important to think about these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So according to caring.com, most people who do update their wills do so in the last 5 years, often because family expansion or change in assets. What do you say to folks who are starting new chapters but haven't planned yet?
Pick up the phone, send an email, talk to someone, whether that's your financial advisor, whether that's one of your trusted bankers, even just a friend that might be in one of the similar fields. Just taking that first step to kind of start the conversation, get in the mindset, think about those things, can really help you in the long term.
Why is it important to work with a estate planner who understands the laws of the city or the state that you might be living in?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are, all lawyers are licensed in the states that they work in. So step one, make sure your attorney's licensed in the state that you not full-time, but your primary residence. So it would be your domicile. It's important to work with them because there are differences in the laws. There are different state tax thresholds. Some states have inheritance taxes.
So we talked about how the gift that we got from the Mark Brandt Legacy Fund has been monumental to our work for these last couple of years, even today as we speak. We'll soon announce the first slate of our multi-year grantees from the Reclaiming Our Power Fund, so stay tuned for that, folks. How does someone go about including a nonprofit, Stonewall Community Foundation or otherwise, in their will?
Yeah, it's very simple and easy. Just as you're thinking through who you may want to leave your own gifts to, whether they're relatives or siblings or friends or godchildren, nieces or nephews, you know, I'm going to ask you for their name and their address pretty much. And that goes the same, that's the same for any charity or institution, nonprofit or foundation. I just really need their information and address, and that would go to them.
You write it into the will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my last question for you, Lee, is what would you say to someone who knows that it's important to create a will, who understands that you don't have to be super rich to have one, but they continue to put this off? What's your recommendation to that person?
What I say is estate planning does not have to be perfection. A lot of times I tell clients, I send a list of questions, answer 50% of them. That's all I need. Don't overthink it. Just, you know, kind of immediate knee-jerk reactions, thoughts. We can get the rest as we go through the process. But it's really just making that first step. I mean, we all are, I can speak for personal experience, sometimes just making that first step can be very difficult. But once you make it, it gets easier, it gets better, you get more familiar with it, and you know, me or anyone like me can help you through the process.
Right. So if folks are ready to take that next step and they do want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Probably through my website is best. It's just vishlaw.com. On there it has all my other contact information to reach me. My email is also lee@vishlaw.com.
Lee, thank you so much for your continued partnership and collaboration. Thank you for being here with us and having this conversation about National Make-A-Will Month. We appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for everything that you all do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to share with you all that we do have more information on our website, so please visit stonewallfoundation.org/legacy, and we can help you take the next step. Thank you.